Hey friends, welcome to episode 0 of Real Estate Developer Discussions with Katie Kim. This podcast is a little different. It's not just about real estate. It's about the real conversations behind the dreams, the deals, the decisions that shape our communities. I grew up in a construction and real estate family, and I learned how to work early, how to roll up my sleeves, how to get the job done. But here's the truth. I didn't grow up knowing how to put the deals together. That part I had to fight for. I had to ask the uncomfortable conversations. I had to show up in the rooms where I didn't feel like I belonged. I had to build a network that believed in me and worked with me. One phone call, one coffee, one, can you help me understand this at a time? And somewhere along the way, something clicked. I wasn't just building deals anymore. I was building a mission to help you see that you don't have to stay on the sidelines. You can step into this space. You can build something that changes your life and maybe even your community. So pull up a chair. This is episode 0, where it all begins. Starting off with my origin story and how I got into real estate development and construction. So, the story begins really at birth. I was born into a real estate construction development family. And I was often on job sites with my dad on the weekends. After a soccer practice, I'd be building walls or shingling roof or pouring concrete. And then the summers, once I could learn how to type and draw floor plans or drafting, I was in the office with my mother working on designing floor plans and layouts for offices and homes and whoever the latest project that she was working on that summer was. I learned accounting, I learned professional etiquette, and constantly in the office on nights and weekends, even cleaning the office for some extra cash, mowing lawns, plowing snow, you name it. We did it. And being told I was good in math and science, I went off to college and got a degree that was not going to bring me back to the family business. I was going to go forth and do consulting. And I worked for a company called Accenture for many years. I worked in their research and innovation department, which they called Accenture Technology Labs. I loved it because it was a place where we got to work with technology 3 to 5 years to market and then find strategic, profitable solutions and implement them. And that's as fast as I can tell you without putting you to sleep. Okay. That opportunity gave me a wealth of skill and knowledge and strategy to go into a company and look at what's not working and figure out some solutions that help make profit, that help change the game, give them some strategy. After my stint at Accenture, I went to work for a small startup company that was eventually bought out by Oracle. And so looking at where we were heading in that path, I said to myself, I don't want to go back to work for big corporate. And so at that time, my mother and father said, well, have you ever thought about coming back home and buying the construction company? I had not. Never. I never thought about leaving Chicago. I loved it. I loved everything about it. It was amazing. However, after discussions with my husband and really looking at where I wanted to go with my career, I realized I was not being fulfilled. There's a difference between getting a paycheck and being able to financially cover the lifestyle you want. And there's also fulfillment, having true joy that comes from being able to just grind it out, to come to work day in, day out, and to believe that you are living your best fulfilled life. And I was missing that. And so we decided to go back and take over the family construction company. And I ended up running the construction company for about 10 years, and the fulfillment itch came again. And I realized that there were so many times that small businesses were coming to us and saying, our business is expanding. We need to add more space. We need a new property. We want to do a development and own the building. All those conversations were had. And a lot of times with our family, we would do a design build lease with an option to buy. And so I'll dig into those in a couple episodes in the future. But what I really was intrigued about were there were these business owners that had amazing skill, amazing knowledge at how to build their project, build their widget, do their service, but they weren't able to put together the real estate strategy and the wealth building knowledge, that generational wealth into their business. And I saw this as a huge opportunity to really dig into how do we help our small businesses bridge that gap? How do we change the game? How do we do these developments in our communities that either people think are way crazy or nobody's willing to touch because it's too complicated to figure out? Now, in the community where I was at, a lot of the developers were doing what I call a typical 80-20 or 90-10. They were putting 10% down of equity and having a 90% loan or 20% and 80% loan. And they're great projects and they cash flow. However, a lot of times those impactful projects, the projects that change the communities, require a little more grit, a little more knowledge, a little more hand-holding. And that's really where my journey and my passion began. In 2015, I left my family construction company, so I did not end up buying it, to the chagrin of my parents. And in 2015, I relaunched the Kim Group with our professional service division, launching our developer for fee offering. This was a path I saw that gave those business owners an opportunity to have us serve as their consultant along the journey, to have us be their advocate in the times where we're going and standing before council, where we're fighting for the different terms, where we're trying to give them the strategy for how do we structure this in your trust? How do we pass this along to the next generation? And I loved it. I was there for all of it. And I really want to share those stories with you. It's also why I'm jumping ahead, which I'll do that from time to time. Jumping ahead, recently launched the Real Estate Development Academy to take the scars, the lessons learned, and all the knowledge and really pour into people if they want to do it by themselves with a little bit of guidance, not necessarily have us hold their hand through the process as we do in the developer for fee. In launching our developer for fee, being able to help businesses fulfill their passion, fulfill their dream of expanding their business, growing their wealth, and structuring it properly alongside their professional team, launching the Real Estate Development Academy, God pulled me for more. He's like, let's get more of these stories out there. And so this is the launch of the Real Estate Developer Discussions with Katie Kim. So in this episode 0, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey, as I've already kind of done. I want to share with you the scars, the lessons learned, the opportunities along the way. And I want to make these conversations real and raw. If you've had the opportunity to have a conversation with me one-on-one in person, you know I go straight, I go deep, and I want the real story. I want to learn from you. I want to learn from your scars and your experience. And a lot of times they generate new ideas for both of us. And that's what I hope you get in listening to this podcast. So I've come up with my Developers 5. These are 5 questions I'm going to ask each one of our guests. If you think there's other questions that you want to be asking, or you say, oh, I love this question, I always ask people this one, let me know. This is your podcast too. So put it in the comments below and we will incorporate that into our show to make sure that you're getting the best and the real and the raw conversations from all of our guests. So what's our Developers 5? What's one deal that looked great on paper, but almost broke you? Oh, that's a good one. 2, what lessons from that deal do you wish you'd known sooner? 3, where did you lean in on faith or gut instinct when logic said it wouldn't work? 4, what's one thing you do now to protect yourself or your legacy that every new developer should know? And 5, if you could pull up one chair at this table, who needs to hear your story and why? So to kick off episode 0, I want to answer these Developers 5 for you. So 1, what's one deal that looked great on paper but almost broke you? Ooh, this is a tough one. So a lot of times when we put the stack, the construction finances together, as well as the development deal, the rent roll, all the whole project, right? The whole package, it looks good because you're making projections based off of the current market data. So there's a lot of times the market shifts halfway through the project and sometimes during construction. And those projects are the ones that I think looked good on paper, but almost broke us. And a lot of ones that come to memory are COVID projects that we started where we were financed and we were in construction, ready to go. One of the projects that I think looked great on paper would be our Samuel Avenue condo building. And that was a project that We did the focus groups. We were fulfilling a need in the community. We had the building almost 100% committed for purchase. So that means all the condos in the building had a contract or a letter of interest on them that says, once they are built, we will buy, right? Then COVID hit. And one by one, we started losing those contracts because people either put their house on the market thinking that they would have the typical buy time frame, and due to COVID, there weren't a lot of houses on the market, so they got snapped up like that, and they had to move tomorrow. We were still pouring the foundation of the building, so we were nowhere near ready. That was one deal that we got tackled right in the middle of construction. Now, we have a great team, and we were able to dig in and we're able to shift. So there was a couple different experiences that we had to bring that project back. And so that really goes to the question number 2, right? Is what lessons from that deal do I wish I would have known sooner? I try and kill a deal probably like 5 or 6 times before I give it to my team to look at. And that helps me go into a risk mitigation strategy that I do for every single deal. I kind of think of it like a flight attendant, like what are all my exits on this journey with this project and this team? And you have to look at that going into the deal. How are you getting out? And you want to have multiple exits because you do not know what's going to hit you. Because the truth is, when you put together projections, that's it. They are projections. They are your best guess at how this project is going to go. There's no confirmation. There's no security. It's fasten your seatbelt, buckle up, we're about to take off. And leveraging that flight attendant analogy with all your exits, once that flight takes off, you have really no control over what happens. You might find turbulence. You might have bad weather. You might need to be redirected. Having the right team on the plane, right, on your journey makes a world of difference. You want the team that is going to dig in, not dig out, or dig in, not jump out when the project shifts, when times get tough. And those are really hard to find. But when you find your people, hold on to them tight and lean in and do more deals together. All right. Number 3, where did you lean on faith or gut instinct when logic said it wouldn't work? So if you followed me for any length of time, or if you know me, you know I am a person of faith. I lean on my faith very often, and I trust my gut. I trust my gut instinct. I lean on my team. I lean on those people that are along with me for my journey. And there are many, many times, like, oh, let me count the ways would be how I'd really answer this question. But I've learned and I've really honed in my gut, that gut intuition, and to lean into it and lean into the team. And there's a lot of times when logic has said it wouldn't work, and bringing those deals back to the table with my team, and my team coming and saying, well, what about this? What if we think about that? What about this? Giving me those insights, making me question and challenge myself and challenge the project is really the core of any development team, because you want to know what is not going to work as fast as you possibly can. So leaning on the team, leaning on my gut. And if something doesn't feel right, to communicate that. Maybe not being able to articulate, like, I'm not sure why this is not feeling right, or I'm not sure why this is not working. And then leaning in and asking the team the question. On one hand, there was one point in time when I was working on a deal, and if we had added the historic tax credits into the deal, the numbers looked way too good, like way too good. And so I had called my partner, Mike, and I said, hey, can I come over? It was a Saturday morning. He's like, yep, I have a family event that's about to happen. And he's like, but come on over. And I come to the table, and he's like, what's wrong? What's going on? And we've been working on these numbers for like weeks. And I said, well, I'm putting this all together. And I said, something's not right. I am missing something. And he goes, okay. And he goes, why do you think that? And I said, because it's too good to be true. And he's like, well, that's a good sales pitch. And I said, no, I'm not saying that. Like, I really am in the calculations. It doesn't feel right. And so we worked through that, and leaning on faith, leaning on your gut, trusting your gut, leaning on your team to help have those conversations. That is everything. It's everything. So who you surround yourself with matters. Building your network right and making sure they have integrity and they have a path and a line of thought to where you want to go and what you're about is everything. All right. And that's what I really want to also share and give you in this podcast and some of our other offerings we have, whether through the Academy or through the Kim Group. Number 4, what's the one thing you do now to protect yourself or your legacy that every developer should know? Lots. And I think it's continuing to build the list of due diligence, of questions, of people in my network. So when one person backs out, or this may not be the right opportunity or the deal for them, I have 3 or 5 other people standing in line ready to step to the plate. That is how I think you can protect yourself as a developer. And the reason I say that is because with our Trefsker's Bakery project, if you've heard me tell you about it, you know what I'm about to say. We had 8 financial sources in that deal. And let me back up. If you haven't heard about the Trefsker's Bakery project, Trefsker's Bakery is an amazing family-owned and operated bakery located in Peoria, Illinois, that originated in 1861. And they had rented this entire time. Let that sink in for a second. Since 1861, they had rented. We were given the opportunity to expand them into 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost. And it was no small feat. All right. However, in doing so and working the numbers back and forth, because we couldn't overtax the business, because the growth projections that we were comfortable with doing of 35% growth, we're not going to be able to handle the debt load of 3.5 times the space. So we had to come back to the drawing board and put in those economic incentives in order to be able to confidently build and expand the business in a space that fit for them, while also looking and obtaining the owner's overall goal and dream of having their own building, having a space for events. So they expanded their operations and started a new business as well, and having other tenants come in and help also cover that debt load. To do this, we put together a financial stack of 8 separate sources to make this deal happen. And within 1 month of closing on the property, we had the main bank on the deal back out. Now let that sit for a second, because if you're like me, it was a big what? And when you have 8 financial sources in play in a deal, one adjustment, one switch, one change in any one of the terms means you have to go back through all of them and start all over. All right. With that in play, this is where your network comes in big time. We had a mortgage broker that had been wanting opportunities at our development deals for months. He was tenacious about asking us for our business. So I called him up and I said, Len, you've been wanting our business for a while. He's like, yep, what do you need? What do you need? I'm on it. I'm like, I need you to close this deal in 1 month. I sent him over all the details. We took a whole afternoon and sat in their office, in their bank, and we went through everything, all the players in the game, boom, boom, boom. And they were able to pull together the deal and close it on time. Now, those are people I want in my network. Those are people that are going to go to the mat for you. And that's why I always encourage you to continue to build your network. Even if you have 2 or 3 people that accomplish this task or this goal, build your network. Because when you need them most, your network is going to help you get out of your head, get out of tough decisions, and give you options that you may not have even thought about. They are game changers. Number 5, if you could pull up one more chair at this table, who needs to hear your story and why? I would say any business owner who's looking to expand their business, incorporate real estate into their deal, and doesn't know how to do it. They are in paralysis by analysis because their growth projections are not able to handle the debt load that this expansion would do, and they're stuck. I would also say anybody, because I can't just have one, anybody who is looking to get into real estate development to make an impact within their community, but doesn't know how to get started. I've created many tools to help people get out of their head and get onto the job site, figure it out, do the reps. And this is just one of the many tools that I want to give to you and show you that it's possible. Everybody started from step one, and you can too. And this is the journey I want you to come along with. And it's getting started. It's asking the questions. It's building your network. It's knowing where step one is. What is it? What's the right strategy for me? I see that so many times that people get into a real estate strategy. Maybe it's a fix and flip, or it's wholesaling, or whatever the latest trend is. And it is not in alignment with their time, talent, and treasure triangle, nor their risk tolerance, nor their goals. And then they wonder, how did I get here? What am I doing? I hate this. I hate real estate investing. That's not real estate investing. You just got into a strategy that wasn't in alignment for you. So taking time to slow down, to speed up, to look at all the opportunities in real estate investing and developing, and getting in alignment with what works for you. That is who I really want to pull up a chair, because I want to talk about the different discussions that we have about the strategies. Why go into this one? Why not that one? And figuring out what works for you, because it is not a one size fits all. And that's the best thing about this opportunity. That's the best thing about real estate development. There's an analogy I use, and as you listen to this podcast, I have a lot of crazy analogies. And this one I really love sharing. When I was along in my journey and I was going to every single expert I know, every developer I know, buying an hour of my attorney's time and saying, how do I do this real estate development thing? How do you put together your deals? The one thing from that very conversation that I had as an aha moment was that development is like a coloring sheet, right? It's like a coloring page. You have this design on the page itself, right? It's all outlined. It's all ready for you to fill it in, to color, to fill in the blanks. And you take the page and you start coloring, and you may start coloring inside the lines. And then you may add something outside the lines. Maybe you add a sun, maybe you add a sky. And that's development. You start with the constraints, the legal constraints, the SEC constraints from raising funds, your legal accounting, all those constraints that we have to follow, right? You have to follow them. That's the page, right? The design is what you want to develop. And how you fill it in, how you color that page is up to your imagination, your network, and your strategy. And it can be anything. And that's what I feel is so frustrating to some people. And it was frustrating to me when I started learning, because I'm like, I want A, B, C, D. Give me the steps. I want to follow the steps. Well, in development, you may start with A, B, go to M, and then come back to D, then go to Z, then come back to F. And it's like, woo, buckle up for the ride. And it's also part of the fun part of the journey. And that's why I want to explain the steps to you in a linear fashion and be able to share those stories and those scars, so that when you're ready to color outside the lines, when you're ready to change the game, that you have the tools, the strategy, and the team behind you to be able to carry it out successfully. I want to thank you for joining us on episode 0 of Real Estate Developer Discussions with Katie Kim. This is just the beginning. I know for some of you who know my whole story, you're going to say, Katie, that was really high level and light. And it is, because we are going to go deep on many, many, many more episodes and talk about many scars and all the projects, all the things. And I'm going to kick off our first episode. Our first guest was my first exposure to real estate development. I have the privilege and the opportunity of sitting in the room for many of these discussions all growing up. And that is going to be my first guest, my first gift to you, is sitting down with my parents and giving you their story of how they got started. I'm excited for you to join us on this journey, and I am open to all your feedback and what you are hungry to know about, learn about, and to share your scar as well. If you have a scar, if you have a lesson that you've learned in your real estate development, please sign up to be a guest on our show. We are excited to learn from you and to sit at the table with you. So if you've been listening and thinking, that all sounds great, but I don't even know where to start, I want you to hear this. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not need millions in the bank or a perfect plan. You just need to take the next step. Ask one question a day that you've been too nervous to ask. Send one email to someone who might open a door. Drive by a piece of land and imagine what it could be. Because the truth is, nobody's going to hand you a permission slip. You have to write your own. And if you're waiting for someone to tell you it's time, let me be the first to say, it's time. You can do this. And I'm here every week to help you figure it out. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for following our show. Thank you for coming to the room and sitting at the table. Let's go.